So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the World CX Summit. And right now, we're on the global state of customer experience overview. Well, the way companies interact with prospective and current customers has made dramatic strides over the last decade. In order to keep up with the latest technologies and platforms for community outreach and community and customer targeting, businesses in Asia are now to be prepared to adapt and change at a staggering pace by exploring the latest in the world of CX. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for our tech talk of Alida's CXM strategy and product architecture, we're joined by Riaz Raihan, the president of Products Alida USA. Well, Riaz has over 20 years of technology and product leadership experience in the United States and Canada. He's somebody who leads the product strategy, product management, research and development, engineering, UX design, and the customer cloud operations for the company. Thank you so much, Riaz, for joining us today and giving us your valuable time with this, as I can see you on the stage and screen. How are you doing, Riaz?
Doing well, Bhavna. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So, Riaz, time for you to get on. And as I can see, over to you.
Thank you. So it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me at TrustCon. I have heard some of the great speakers before me. I love all the discussion around mission-driven CX, around the empathy gap, around artificial intelligence and CX and so on. So it's been a great event. Let me dive in, and before I start, give you maybe a minute of overview on who Alida is. So Alida is a CX cloud-based SaaS company. We are based in North America, and we have operations around the globe, including Asia Pacific, Europe, the Middle East, Latin America, and North America, and of course, Australia and New Zealand. We do a lot of work with a variety of customers in a variety of industries. We focus on several industries, including technology, healthcare, retail, media, and financial services. And one of the core beliefs at Alida is that innovation is the only sustainable form of differentiation. And hopefully today you'll see that as I walk through a few core ideas. I want to focus more on CX and talk about some of the key trends. And one of the first things I'll start with is the Gartner Magic Quadrant on Voice of Customer, which was published a few months ago. And Alida was given a good position on this quadrant. We're very proud of being named one of the top 10 vendors on the planet. And our plan is to kind of move in this direction, and innovation is our main strategic lever. So with that said, let me really dive into three key questions. The first question is, what is CX? What does it mean in the context of what's happening around the globe? Number two, what is our CXM architecture? I want to talk about that in a little bit of detail, and then quickly pivot to number three, which is what are CX use cases and how are customers actually using this technology? So let's get into the first piece. What is CX? Now, obviously, we think of CX as customer experience, but there's three other dimensions to it. There's product experience, there's employee experience, and then there's brand experience. And what companies find is that the same toolkit used for managing customer experience can very easily fit these other use cases as well. Now, the other core idea around this is the idea of the closed loop. And this is fundamental, and I think this is a true differentiator in the market today. And this is all about closed loop experience management. So understanding that it's not just about listening to feedback, which is obvious, but about interpreting that feedback, acting on it, and then monitoring things in real time. So the four facets, and I'll walk through them quickly. The first one is pretty self-evident. It's about monitoring customer experiences in real time, capturing signals from a variety of sources. I'll talk about that in the architecture, and then taking actions powered by AI. Now, in terms of product experience, it's about tracking product experiences from a variety of sources, a variety of users, using feedback to improve product delivery and product design. Employee experience tends to be about staying close to employees, about dealing with COVID fatigue, and about building great corporate culture. And finally, brand experience is about measuring brand awareness and positioning an image and then running both global and local brand campaigns. But one of the things that we have found in our journey is that it's important to give customers the ability to go broad or to go deep. And we call this the power of and. So what does going broad mean? It means going out to all of your users, whether they are customers or employees or people that use your brand or use your product. So going out to all your users, and this could scale to millions. On the flip side is the ability to go deep, to go to a panel or to go to a smaller segment and to truly get into solving the problems, right? And this ability to do both, I think, is very important. Now, I want to share with you the investment areas that I'm seeing in CX across the planet. Now, there are some areas that have been already spoken about today, including artificial intelligence. But I do want to point out that there's areas like video analytics, quick polls or micro surveys, closed loop CXM, areas like text analytics, voice analytics, data lakes. A lot of great CX implementations are now based on very simple data lakes. And this was not the case even 5 years ago. And finally, and as many speakers before me have said, AI is making a big impact, and then machine learning and predictive models and so on and so forth. Now, I want to touch upon 3 key learnings that we have had as Alida, as a global provider around CX. And the first learning is that CX is about scale. The ability to do things at scale is fundamentally important. And let me give you a few data points. When we started our journey, we started off with several million people responding. And today, we have 164 million humans who have responded on our platform. If you look at the number of people responding, it's about 100,000 people that respond every day. And this is the kind of scale true CX companies are able to achieve today. Our second learning is that CX is diverse and multilingual. And Asia Pac is a classic example of multilingual capability. As an example, we have 34 different languages that we support in our survey capability, and we're adding more constantly. The other piece is that CX tends to be used by brands around the world to do a variety of things. So the diversity as well as the multilingual capability, I think, really come to the fore. Our third learning is really around simplicity. And this might surprise you, but what we've found is simple architectures are the ones that tend to be the most enduring. When we built out our cloud-based architecture, we built out one simple architecture. At the core, you've got the Alida engine, and it's a multi-tenant SaaS platform with Alida at the core. And our CXM is bolstered by investments in analytics, in predictions, in micro surveys, in surveys, and a host of other capability that we built around that simple multi-tenant platform. So whether it's things like text analytics or social or video or journeys or NPS or voice of employee, it's all built on one SaaS platform. Why is this important? It's important because around the world, companies want to have one login, have their data in one place, and have one simple user interface. And this is our third big learning from CX. So what I see as best practices are platforms that are cloud native, platforms that are built on microservices, platforms that are extensible, that are containerized, so you're building on a true cloud native platform, platforms that often use a data lake, allows you to put data in one place, and finally, that have enterprise grade reliability and security. So these are my top 3 learnings from a CX standpoint when I look at what's happening in CX globally, and we have built Alida on these core principles. Let me now move to our architecture. Our architecture is built on a very simple model that isn't our model. It's actually Forrester's. It's an industry-leading model, but we have adopted it, and we call it LIAM, for listen, interpret, act, and monitor. A simple way of thinking about LIAM is that listen is all about listening to signals. Interpret is all about analyzing those signals and defining rules, business rules that allow you to look at the data coming in from different sources, make sense of it quickly. And then act is about taking action to not just listen to the voice of the customer, but to actually manage their experience in real time. And monitor is about keeping an eye on things proactively. So we don't repeat the same mistakes and customer experiences continue to improve constantly. So let me show you how this connects to our architecture. So first, the ability to listen. What we found is customer signals come from a variety of sources. We obviously have our own survey capability. There's other vendors out there that are doing this. There's CRM systems, ERP systems, ITSM, call centers. There's HR systems, e-commerce systems, collaboration systems, social, mobile, website, point of sale systems, and other systems. So customer signals can come from a variety of sources. And we are humble enough to understand that you have to be able to connect to those sources and truly get those signals in and make sense of them. So the first thing we do is we put it through API into a lake. And this allows us to put in both experience data as well as operational data in one place. And the lake is powered by artificial intelligence. Our next step in the interpretation is to use rules. And these rules are defined by you, the user. And these rules allow the user to manipulate that data and to make sense of it. And of course, then comes action. And this is an important capability we offer. It's called case management. It comes from our company. However, if customers want to use case management that comes from other vendors, we connect to those too. And finally, we provide a strong suite of AI and analytics that allow us to proactively manage this. So if you look at our architecture is very much built on listen, interpret, act, and monitor. So the listen part is this. It's all about listening to the signal. It's about listening carefully and completely. The interpretation part is about making sense of the data, because a lot of CX companies struggle to make sense of the data. I think it's very important to store the data in one place, not in 5 or 10 or 15, and then to apply simple business rules to interpret what the data is telling us. The third part, of course, is to act. And action is paramount, because if you don't take action on what you've heard, customers tend to get disenfranchised. And finally, there's monitor, which is all about analytics. So in a nutshell, we call this the human sensory way of doing CX. It's about listening. It's about interpreting or processing. It's about taking action in real time, appropriate action within a timely fashion. And of course, it's about monitoring or keeping an eye on things. So listen, interpret, act, and monitor. If I want to ask you to take away one idea from my talk today, it is that CXM is about closing the loop. It's about listening, interpreting, acting, and then monitoring in real time. Now, to make the listen possible, one of the things we have done is to build a tremendous variety of integrations. So we integrate not only across our suite, but we integrate to all of our peers, some of whom are in attendance in this conference. We believe this is important because we live in a heterogeneous world. And in a heterogeneous world, customers have choice, and we have to live with those choices. We integrate with all of the CRM vendors, with the CDP vendors, with the DMP vendors. We integrate with the ERP vendors. We integrate with companies like Salesforce and Zendesk and ServiceNow and Jira, the IT service management vendors. We integrate with all the call centers. We integrate with HR systems because companies are now running very modern and very sophisticated voice of employee initiatives. We integrate with e-commerce companies like Amazon and Shopify. We integrate with all the collaboration tools because a lot of work today is happening online, like this conference, and companies need the ability to upload feedback from these kind of interactions and put them into their CX. We integrate with all the social platforms that you can imagine. We provide our own, but we integrate with things like Brandwatch and Bazaar Voice. We integrate with mobile. We have an SDK for that. We integrate with websites, with point of sale systems, and finally, we integrate with companies like Twilio and Pinpoint. And why do we do all of this? Because this gives customers choice. It also allows you to bring in data from existing sources into one data lake and then apply intelligence through the rules engine and use the brain of our system to really interpret what the data is telling you. And this is the essence of our entire strategy around CXM. It's around listen, interpret, act, and monitor. Now, I also want to talk briefly about use cases. So why are use cases so important? They're important because use cases are really how customers consume our technology. So let me give you an example. So first and foremost, what is a use case, right? So this is how companies drive better CX outcomes. And there's many ways in which companies use our technology, and they do some very cool things. Let me give you an example. The first example I'll share with you is around financial services. Now, we do a lot of work with financial services firms around the world, including in Asia Pac. And as you can tell, we've got lots of customers. Now, when we talk about our capabilities, we really talk about all of the capabilities that we bring from a CX standpoint, right? We talk about surveys and micro surveys and feedback management and experience management and NPS and voice of customer, voice of employee, insights, market insights, product. And this is all good stuff. But that's really not what the customer cares about. What the customer cares about is use cases. So translating CX speak into use cases is paramount. So when we talk to financial services customers, we talk about retail banking, wealth management, and commercial banking. And in retail banking, we worry about things like in-branch experience, omni-channel, digital customer service, loan products. And what this helps us do is it helps us really manage that experience in real time, but it also helps us do this in the context of what the customer wants, which is the use case. On the same kind of line, we have use cases by a variety of industries. As I said earlier, we play in healthcare, in technology, in media, and in retail, in addition to financial services. And these are some of the use cases that we actually enable in each of those industries. So we find a great amount of receptivity to our approach. But most importantly, I think those three key learnings that I shared earlier about CX hold true, and we have built our company around that mission. Now, we are a 20-year-old company. We've been doing this for a long time. And in closing, I wanted to share a couple of things. First, I wanted to give you a copy of our product brochure. So if you have your phones, please open up your camera and point it at the QR code in the bottom right of your screen. It'll download the product brochure, and you can actually learn more about how we do what we do. And if you'd like to reach out to me directly, my email is in the bottom right also. So feel free to send me an email with your thoughts and your comments and any questions that you might have. I'll leave you with these two final thoughts. Number one, CX is about scale. The ability to scale and do touch points and surveys across millions of customers across Asia Pac is a fundamental success factor. And number two, CX is about engagement. And with that, I'll hand it back to Bhavna and our excellent hosts at this event. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Riaz. Thank you for giving us your valuable time and joining us.